What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SI Sooners podcast, episode 108. It is Wednesday, February 2nd, National Signing Day. It's a late night show because we waited for the signing day events to proceed. Now we're hitting it. It's 9:42 as we start, so we're burning the late oil here a little bit. How are we doing? Josh Callaway here in Oklahoma City, John Hoover in Tulsa, Ryan Chapman in Norman. We're making our way through the snow like everybody. It has been snowing here for hours. It's piling up. I don't think I'm leaving my house for a couple of days. How are we doing? How are we feeling on what's obviously one of the busiest non-game days that we really have, National Signing Day?
You know me, man. Being from Alaska, I love the snow. We've gotten a couple of inches here already on the deck. The dogs don't want to go back out in the backyard. It's one of those deals. But hope everybody stays safe and warm as we deal with this snow followed by ice, I guess. Scary stuff.
Yeah, I'm just exhausted. Flatly exhausted. Long signing day, longer day. Fighting through at 6:30 p.m. driving back home. I don't think I topped 30, which is a good thing. But the roads were okay, and surprisingly, everyone seemed to have the same idea. Like, hey, don't need to go any faster than 30. We're all good. We'll all get home, which was good and refreshing. So
right,
it's been a very, very long week for Ryan, but very excited to be on Beyond Signing Day.
Yep.
It's 20 minutes till 10, 15 or so minutes till 10 o'clock at night. And so I measured it out. I drank a half of a 5-hour energy. So I can get us through this thing and get this podcast posted before I have to go to bed, guys.
Right. And, for Ryan, I mean, few things like exhaust you whenever you're not really doing much as driving home in like snow or whatever, where you're just gripping the wheel and
stressful.
You're like nervous. Yes, it wears on you. By the time you get home, you feel like you just ran like 5 miles or something. So
yeah, and like every car that passes you, no one was going super fast, but every car that passes, I'm just panicked. Like, what if this is the one that fishtails and it's the chain reaction, like all that stuff. And especially because the only way for me to get home, frankly, was to go over 3 or 4 pretty tall overpasses there on 35 South. So those are always the ones like going by the Capitol, all that stuff.
Right.
Those are the ones that scare you. It like everything was packed down in snow. It wasn't like super slippy slidey, but you never know. Like, is this the one that's iced over? Not fun.
Right.
Not fun at all.
No, I remember last year leaving my then fiance's parents' house, going to my apartment, and it was one of those days where it snowed the whole time. I was going through Edmond, and the whole time I was thinking, please don't get stuck. Please. Every light, you're like, this, I may just be living at this light if I can't get the momentum back going again. So stressful times. Hopefully everybody's being weather aware and safe. People were really like doing the thing like, where's the weather, when it hadn't snowed yet at like 2. Well, it's here now, and we're all snowed in. So settle in, enjoy the SI Sooners podcast. If you're listening on all our regular spots, or of course, if you haven't noticed or heard, we're on YouTube now. You can watch the shows on John's YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. So you can watch the shows with us on your TV or whatever, if that's an easier way for you to take in the show. Obviously, that's a good way for you to do it. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. We have a ton to get to, and obviously National Signing Day. We're going to start with Caleb Williams. I want to put that out there. We're not going to talk about him forever. I know there's, we've talked about it before. There's serious Caleb Williams fatigue. People don't want to hear about it a ton, so we're not going to just drown on and on about it. But we'll get it out of the way right at the top. Then we'll get into signing day and everything else. He made it official, finally. Caleb Williams is officially going to USC. Said it yesterday. Came just a couple days after Jackson Dart said he's going to Ole Miss, which means it is the Dylan Gabriel show. We'll talk about that a little more in just a few minutes. But Caleb makes it official here, guys. And we knew it was coming. Right when he went in the portal, our very first show, we were kind of in consensus that we thought he was going to go to USC, and we were correct on that front. I never really bought the Wisconsin rumors. I never bought the UCLA rumors. It just seemed like UCLA was always where it was going to, or USC, was always going to be where it ended up, and that is where it ended up. Brent Venables had very interesting comments about that today. We'll talk about that in just a second. But just now that it's finally official, I guess just your thoughts on all of this, this saga, this month-long journey of figuring out what was going to happen, and now it's done. He is going to USC, and it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out.
a day into National Signing Day, the least interesting thing is that Caleb Williams went to USC. We knew that was coming. We knew it was going to happen. No surprise whatsoever. What was interesting was Brent Venables' comments. He said we were going to allow him some autonomy. I thought, that's interesting. He said, to be fair, he didn't choose me. He didn't choose Coach Lebby. He said, it's understandable and I need to reevaluate some things. Okay. But then he said, he kind of explained where he stood on, a guy entering the portal, regardless of the position, entering the portal and then waffling. Venables said, he said to me, once you go in the portal, there's a line that you cross. Said, I have to assume that you're not coming back, especially think about it, guys. If it's a quarterback, you have to assume he's not coming back and you have to move on. You have to formulate another plan, a plan B, if you will. He said, I got to assume that you're not going to be here once you make that decision. Now we talked to Jeff Lebby, and Lebby said there was about a 48-hour period where Caleb entered the portal. Dylan Gabriel's from USC transfers to UCLA. Dylan Gabriel's deadline to get going at UCLA was the same day that Caleb Williams entered the transfer portal, January 3rd. So he said, Jeff Lebby told us if he would have started class on January 3rd, then Dylan would have been ineligible for an entire calendar year at Oklahoma, of course. He said he would have locked him into UCLA, called it a wild 48 hours. So fascinating stuff from Venables today, fascinating stuff from Jeff Lebby. Ryan, it's what you said right before we started recording, or maybe Josh, I can't remember which one of you guys said this. It's amazing to have coaches who get on a Zoom call or get on a press conference and actually tell you the truth, actually reveal what happened. I'm not taking a shot there at Lincoln Riley. I'm taking a shot at Lincoln's code of silence that he wouldn't, reveal stuff like that. He didn't ever tell you the backstory. He didn't ever get into the details. First one we have with Brent Venables, National Signing Day, he gets into the details of what happened with both Dylan Gabriel and Caleb Williams. So he said that sent a message to my guys that if you go into the portal, the assumption is that something's happened. You're not happy with where you're at. He said, my job and my allegiance and my loyalty is to that locker room and to this university. So that was really refreshing to hear Brent go down that road.
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, sorry for the distraction. I had the OU women's basketball game off screen. They just escaped Waco with the win, their first win streak against Baylor since 2009.
Unreal.
So shout out to Coach Jenny and the crew there.
We'll talk about that at the end of the show, but
yeah,
Jenny
we'll talk about at the end of the show.
Unreal. Yeah. All right. Back to that. That's insane.
But yeah. So, and the thing too that stood out to me from Brent Venables is, like you were kind of saying, John, he told us what this was about. He went on this tangent of, I understand that you did not sign up to play for this staff, for these coaches, all this stuff. And then he was like, he kind of said the quiet thing out loud, right? If you want to look at fit, if you want to look at how I fit in this guy's offense, this, and that, you can turn on film and watch how an offense is run, and that'll tell you how you'll fit into that offense. Brent Venables basically alluding to, if you're just worried about your fit in offense, you do not have to enter the transfer portal and talk to anyone. You can just use your eyeballs to see. So if it was just about quarterback development, all that stuff, entering the portal was not a necessity. So interesting on that front. Interesting too that Jeff Lebby was I forget who asked it. Sorry, was putting out fires at the radio station because the people were not happy with the quality of the Zoom call. Sorry for Brent Venables' internet, but Lebby basically said, like, yeah, he felt that they had a fair shake at Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams at the Alamo Bowl had told us that he had called Jeff Lebby, or they'd talked on the phone basically every day, right, since he was hired. So it very much sounds like, yeah, everyone was good on that side of things. It was once the season ended for Caleb Williams, made that termination to enter the portal, all the communication broke off, and then the rest is history. So fascinating. It's something that'll be revisited off season after off season inevitably, because for at least the next 3 to 4 years, the immediate future of Oklahoma football and USC football is intertwined, whether we all like it or not.
Yeah, and real quick, I'll add on to that. You mentioned the communication. Brent said there was a span of several days where there was not adequate communication, and that led him to realize, okay, this is not happening. They're not communicating with me, the head coach.
Sure.
This is not happening. get on the phone with your boy Dylan Gabriel and see if he can still get here as soon as possible. That's basically how it shook down. That's not a direct quote. Don't get me wrong there. But the lack of communication from the Caleb Williams camp, I think we saw it coming. I think we anticipated this would happen. I think when he went into the portal, this was our guess as to how it would shake out. And, it's followed the script basically. And we move on from Caleb Williams.
Yeah. I mean, and, it was crazy to hear Brent Venables be so open about it. Like you guys just said, he basically said, once he hit the portal, that we kind of figured he was gone. That was really the belief was there was no reason for him to the portal if he wanted to be here. We've talked to him a ton. We've been recruiting him back. If after all that he's still hitting the portal, then there's nothing we can do. That's it. So it was very refreshing, definitely, to hear a coach be so open about it. We're used to Lincoln, kind of never really giving us straight, honest answers all the time. We talked about that before. Even that's not revisionist history. We said that during the season, he would be he never really gave you much. And Brent Venables, he'll give you what he thinks. So that was certainly different. And yeah, I mean, for me, just final thoughts on it. I said this before. If you're an Oklahoma fan, you're going to be very upset, and rightfully so. The way that this went down, the way this transpired. Lincoln Riley goes on ESPN today and is talking about the transfer portal needs guardrails and all that stuff. It's like nobody has abused the portal more than Lincoln Riley. So that was a crazy thing to say. But, I think for Caleb specifically, if you're an OU fan, this move makes a lot more sense than a Wisconsin or whatever. It just does. It makes way more sense for him to do this than one of those other options. So I don't know if that makes you feel better. It's certainly not going to, but at least in my mind, it does. And then, lastly, this narrative that we're going to have to live with all summer, that USC is like a playoff contender, they're going to be great, is going to be a lot to handle because they're not going to be great. They're not going to be good. Yeah. They're going to be fine next year, in my opinion. They'll be fine. They'll be 7-5, 8-4. They'll be fine. It's crazy to suggest that they're going to be a contender for a national title next season with the roster that they are inheriting. It's insane. So that narrative is wild, but we move on. Any last things?
Yeah, I do want to lay claim though. You're going to hear it here first because I'm going to, after I say this, put it in my back pocket and you won't hear it again until the middle of next year. But hey, Lincoln Riley, Baker Mayfield, transfer quarterback. Kyler Murray, right. Transfer quarterback. Jalen Hurts, transfer quarterback. And now Caleb Williams, transfer quarterback. Lincoln Riley can't do it with his own guys. Has to be quarterback transfers. Can't start at the same institution.
Hey, look, we talked about it on last week's show. He had the whole big inter-conference stink that he made about Chandler Morris, and he brings in all these Pac-12 guys. It just makes him look bad. It makes him look like a hypocrite, which is not anything anybody wants to do.
Needs guardrails, Josh. The portal needs guardrail.
How many times in his career is he going to kick a field goal as time expires, a totally superfluous field goal, and then invoke competitive code of competition or whatever that he did?
The code of sportsmanship.
And then you transfix that with the comments that Brent Venables had today about Jaron Kanak, which actually I think it's Kinnick. The pronunciation guide, I've been saying it wrong the whole time. I think it's Kinnick, actually. So apologies to Mr. Kinnick. Where Brent did everything in his power basically to make him go back to Clemson. Like, please, I don't want you. I don't have a spot for you. Please go over there. And basically Dabo had to push him into going to Oklahoma, like, go over there. So wild how different these guys are. They couldn't be more different.
The world's weirdest tug of war. The world's weirdest tug of war.
Unbelievably strange. So sticking with quarterbacks real quick, the Jackson Dart era in Norman did not last very long. He goes to Ole Miss. That didn't end up happening. Just to kind of button up that part of it. It sounds like Jackson Dart just went where he feels like he can play faster. I don't know if it's that simple. I may be oversimplifying it, but Ole Miss is a clearer path to playing right away, I think, than Oklahoma was with Dylan Gabriel in town. I think that might have been the difference maker at the end. So Jackson Dart, Michael Trigg, we talked about before, they go to Ole Miss, and thus the three-team trade of Jeff Lebby, Dart, Trigg, Caleb Williams, Mario Williams is complete with those two guys going to Ole Miss. So kind of puts the finishing touches on that little storyline that didn't last very long.
Yeah, Oklahoma's going to need a player to be named later because I'm worried about –
they're still owed one.
Look, today Brent Venables said he loves college football. He loves the relationship part of it, and that's why he's never been really ever thought about going to the NFL because it's very much a business. I'm here to say Brent Venables would fail miserably as a general manager.
Yeah, that trade, it didn't work out totally evenly, all things considered. Although if Jeff Lebby stays here for like 10 years and is awesome, then maybe. But I think we all think he's going to get maybe a bigger gig before too long. But we'll see. We have to talk to him for the first time today. We'll talk about that in a second.
The passion for Oklahoma, though, is obviously there. This is not it. You're not getting a Texas Tech retread. You're not getting someone from all over in Jeff Lebby that has to, learn the history, all that. He pretty much said, yeah, it's Oklahoma. This is always where I wanted to be. And that Brent Venables said, would you think about coming? And he's like, can I sign now? Like, I'll move. I'm there. I'm already packed. We're going.
Right. So let's stick with go ahead.
Yeah, Josh, I think you were going to say let's stick with quarterbacks. To further that point, let's talk about the quarterback that is here.
Yeah,
it's Dillon Gabriel. Both Brent Venables and Jeff Lebby had a lot to effusive praise to say about Dillon Gabriel, including the growth that he's seen, the growth that Jeff Lebby has seen in him since he played for him as a freshman at UCF. Pretty impressive comments there by Jeff Lebby as well. First of all, to remove any doubt, let's get it out up front. The starting quarterback at the University of Oklahoma in 2022 is Dillon Gabriel. It's not Micah Bowens. It's not Ralph Rucker. It's not Nick Evers.
You want to talk about refreshing? No, just fake QB competition. None. It was silence today. Jason Kersey kind of bit the bullet. Not that Dillon Gabriel's the obvious starter, but we're so scarred covering this team that he still felt obligated to ask, is there? And Jeff Lebby basically laughed off the question, like he's the only guy who's played at all. Like obviously he's the starter. So done deal. Dillon Gabriel.
We are so conditioned to buy into that load of crap that Austin Kendall and Kyler Murray are competing for the starting job.
The worst one.
Yeah. This went on and on and on every year. Well, it's going to be a company. And so when we started this Zoom call, I'm like, how do we approach this question with Jeff Lebby? Do we just throw it out there? And I think it was Jason Kersey that did it. Just throw it out there. Who's the starting quarterback? Is Dillon Gabriel the starting quarterback, or is it going to be a competition? The wheels in my head were saying, of course he's going to say it's a competition, Jason, right? Of course he's going to say it's a competition. Everybody's got, even we're all on the same page, that we're a new staff and we're trying. No, he nipped it in the bud immediately and said, no, Dillon's a starter. I mean, he's the only guy that's played Division I football, played a college snap. So that was so refreshing, was it not? But Gabriel, some of the stuff that he had to say about it, man, just an impressive array. The talking about meeting the parents, knowing the parents from back at UCF, and meeting the mom and dad. Mom and dad are in Hawaii right now with Sooner gear on, they said. I mean, the whole thing. Plus, obviously, as I think maybe it was Venables that said it, he can flat spin it. So he's a good quarterback. They got a guy I think that they're 100% comfortable with moving forward as the starting quarterback at OU.
Yeah, Ryan, obviously we talked about Dillon Gabriel and what he is whenever they got him, but now we know he's the starting quarterback. How good can Oklahoma be with him? And it seems like he's ingratiating himself pretty quickly. He's telling he already has that relationship with Lebby. It sounds like Venables loves him. We were on the softball media day Zoom last week. He's hanging out with Jocelyn Allo, the Hawaiian catcher. It seems like he's fitting into OU really quickly.
Yeah, I was about to say, you stole the thunder there that, of course, you have to name him the starter. Jocelyn Allo is the kingmaker on campus in Norman. If she invites Dillon Gabriel over to have some Hawaiian cuisine to celebrate, he's your guy. But no, I mean, Dillon Gabriel's a guy that comes in, and look, there's a lot of question marks about this team in 2022, right? The offensive line, can they get that figured out? What's the defense going to look like? Because it's now a transitional year for the defense after losing a ton of talent, guys that are tearing it up at the Senior Bowl right now. But just looking at quarterback play specifically, Josh, you said it. Like, look at the Big 12 championship game. Spencer Sanders, Gary Bohannon, Chapin, all that stuff. Ewers and Dylan Gabriel are going to be the two best quarterbacks in the Big 12 next year. So if everything else is the same, Oklahoma can absolutely win a Big 12 championship with Dylan Gabriel. Now, what's their cap as far as national championship good, all that stuff? We have no idea. There are so many unknowns, like we said. But just looking at what Dylan Gabriel has done, the Sooners absolutely can be at the forefront of the Big 12 title race again with Dylan Gabriel. And you're going to get a guy, too, that does he have the Caleb Williams magnetism or whatever? No idea. We haven't seen him and his teammates interact, but everything we've heard about him is, while it may not be that level of whatever or that certain style, the dude is a leader, clearly a leader, very mature, in control, in command, a guy that commands the respect of his teammates just by the way he goes about his business on and off the field. So there won't be any, hey, Spencer Rattler's really good, but can he be a leader? Stuff like there's none of that. We know what he can do on the field. We know what he is off the field. The literal question is just, hey, did the collarbone heal up fine? You know what I mean? Like that's what you're asking out of Gabriel, and then adjusting to the speed of Big 12 football. Well, he'll be able to dip his toes in the water and get up to speed by Texas.
Absolutely. So, we'll see how that looks. I'm excited for it, obviously, to see what he can look like. And obviously, he has that previous relationship with Lebby that we've talked about, so much. And, the backup quarterback competition will be electric between Rucker, Bowens, Evers. Who's going to get that number 2 spot on the depth chart come next fall? That'll be the quarterback storyline, because the starter, there is no competition. There is no discussion. It is going to be Dylan Gabriel. So there you have it. Dime time will be the guy. Number 8, which is a kind of a, I'm with it. 8's not a bad QB number, which is what he'll be donning.
How long do you think until, like, obviously we weren't in person today, not because of COVID stuff or whatever, just because of the weather. How long do you think it's going to take of us being in person, walking up to Jeff Lebby and walking up to Brent Venables saying, we're sorry, the old regime would have never answered that question, or like, we're sorry, we're giving you dumb. Like, they're going to be like, why do you got the Oklahoma media is like, who's the starting quarterback? It's clearly Dylan Gabriel. Like, well, you guys haven't been here the last 5 years, 6 years.
It's cool that we can, we'll ask if a guy's going to be out, and like we can feel good about what they say. We'll actually know if players are out or not.
Delaire Turniel's question.
We'll figure that out later in the week.
Right.
We'll decide that later in the week when there's no media availability.
Sure. Absolutely. So to kind of wrap up, the first segment, there's so much to get to. Obviously, today was signing day. Obviously, we talked to Brent Venables briefly. He had really bad internet connection at his place, I assume in Norman, although Mike Houck said he wasn't in Norman. I don't know if he just meant he wasn't at OU. I don't know what that meant. But whatever he was.
Is he at the lake house? Is that like the post-signing day lake house retreat that he goes to after signing day's over and he got all the signatures on paper?
I don't know. But he had really bad internet connection, so we didn't get him for very long. Supposedly, maybe we'll get him again soon, hopefully. Brent Venables is an in-person guy, so hopefully we get him in person soon.
It was about 30. It was about 30 minutes, but it was only about 15 minutes of it was usable.
It didn't feel like it. Yeah, it felt like four. It felt like 4 questions. Like it didn't feel like much.
It was not our fault. It was not our fault. I posted on YouTube already.
Oh, people are mad.
Like, this is the worst video ever, Hoover.
Yeah, people are mad. It's not our fault.
It's all we've got. It's all we've got.
Blame Brent's Wi-Fi. Was not our fault. His bandwidth was low. That's what it popped up. It kept saying Brent Venables' bandwidth is low. It kept popping up.
I was just yelling, "We know!" at the computer as soon as it popped up.
We're aware.
Like, we can all tell.
Aware. Yeah. And he would launch into something that you knew was good and you couldn't hear it, and it was maddening. But we got to hear some, thankfully. So I'm going to kind of cheat and just ask you guys both. Just so we got Venables for a little while, and then we got Jeff Lebby and Ted Roof for the first time ever. There's so much. So I just, and we'll have time to talk about it all. So I figured I'd just kind of ask you guys, is there anything that stuck out, from any of them? Just, things that really you globbed on. Ted Roof was different than I thought he was going to be. He was much more I don't know what I expected, I guess, but he was different than what I expected. He was very talkative and kind of very laid back and relaxed, which was cool. Cracked a couple of jokes. He felt like he kind of just had been coaching OU for a long time. He kind of said the feel of him, but just general, takeaways from these 3 guys here. That was kind of a later. It's like 4:35. I was late, a Wednesday evening Zoom.
I'll jump in with some words from Ted Roof that we can expect. I think moving forward. He got a question about the defensive line, and he spoke for about the next 3 minutes about various thoughts on the defensive line. The number one word is aggressive and attack, he said, and then he admitted, no, that's 2 words. Aggressive and attack on the defensive line. He said you want to be multiple, extremely multiple, where you can get some. Love this 3-down structure, 4-down structure, 5-down structure, and people are the football nerds on the conference call are just going, oh yes, talk to me. He said you want to change the picture for the quarterback, but you've got to have the ability to stop the run. But being multiple, changing the picture for the quarterback and attacking at the same time, it gets into conceptual learning where a lot of times you want to teach guys in buckets and say, this is the same as. I was listening to all this and I was going, holy crap, this guy knows more, has probably forgotten more football in the past 5 minutes than I've learned in my entire life.
Right. No, yeah, he was, I always felt the same way. Like, I look forward to hearing him more throughout the season. I hope we get him regularly. I really did come away from that thinking, I want to hear him talk more throughout the season and kind of get his feel on each game as we go along, kind of like we did with Grinch. It's a little bit different because now you actually have an OC and a DC, so we'll see how that goes. But I had a similar kind of takeaway.
Yeah, well, and two, Roof definitely came off as an educator as opposed to like a motivator. And that's what, again, I was only at the in-person press conferences this last year with Alex Grinch, but it was all motivation. We're not connecting all this stuff. It's hard to imagine that Roof's going to be that guy just with his demeanor. Now, obviously, talking to us versus talking to the player, all that stuff, totally different. But the other thing that I kind of got from it, and I already kind of alluded to it a little bit with Jeff Lebby, but there's just a reverence for Oklahoma. Jeff Lebby, like I said, was immediately like, yes, of course, I want to be here. This is the dream job, obviously. But even Ted Roof, he's a guy that has basically not been at any spot more than 2 years, really, save 2 slightly longer stints at Georgia Tech. But he's a guy that you can tell a lot of people are like, this older guy that's kind of journeyman, what's he going to do? And he talked about like, I'd never had the pleasure to even come across Oklahoma for any reason. Then you get here and he just starts going into the history of the program. And he led with like Bud Wilkinson. That's just, it was such a young staff under Lincoln
He's
Riley.
friends with his son.
Yeah.
Which was a hilarious connection.
It was one of those things that Lincoln Riley staff, you could tell that they understood like Oklahoma's a big deal, but I think that some of those guys were just too young to just take a minute to stop and go, this is really freaking cool that you're at this program. And so I think that there's more of a reverence and understanding that I don't think it'll translate to more wins or anything like that. It's just a very different feel from the previous staff. Yeah. And it's the first impression we can get of what the Brent Venables program is going to be like, because he talks so much about relationships and all that stuff, but we just haven't been able to talk to anyone other than Brent up to this point.
And there's also the fact that Jeff Lebby came here as a scholarship athlete. This is his alma mater. He coached here. He knows what it's all about. And that's how he opened up. He said, to be back here is amazing. Roof's connection to OU cracked me up. He said he's known Bob Stoops since Stoops coached at Florida. Okay. Because, he was up and down the East Coast, basically in that corridor. He once said hi to Barry Switzer about 8 years ago, he said. And then as for Bud Wilkinson, he said he knows Jay Wilkinson. Well, Jay Wilkinson was an All-American wide receiver at Duke, first team All-American. And, he was obviously head coach. Ted Roof was head coach at Duke. So you can imagine he knows a lot of those older, more decorated players, guys who came through the program and might want to meet the new coach and, have dinner with them or something like that. So his relationship there, I think he downplayed it. I think he's probably got a better relationship with Jay Wilkinson, who I've interviewed and spoke to many times. He's a great guy. He's a great human being. I think he's probably maybe closer to Jay Wilkinson than he let on. So that might be a storyline later on down the road.
He said he's known him for like a really long time. He made it sound like they've been friends for a long time. So that was kind of a cool little thing there. And he said, it's funny because he has those connections, but he admitted, I've never been to this stadium until I got the job. Like, he's never done a game. So like next September when he's on the sidelines, for the first time he's ever experienced a game day in Norman, which will be cool. And I'm sure we'll ask him after that game, did you kind of soak it in a little bit, kind of take in the fact that it's your first time here while you're coaching it, which I can't imagine has happened a ton, especially somebody who's been around as long as Ted Roof has, coached for decades. The fact that his first shot time coaching at Memorial Stadium will be literally as the DC. That's kind of wild. So that's kind of a cool thing as well. All right. We'll go ahead and take a break. There's still tons to get to. Obviously, Oklahoma's added a zillion players since the last show, seemingly. I can think of 7 off the top of my head. I may be missing some. So we'll go through everybody that Oklahoma has added, all the new signees. It was a busy signing day, lots of commits, all that stuff. We'll get into all that coming up next on the SI Sooners podcast.
Hey, listen up. Winter's here, okay? But you know the seasons in Oklahoma. Cold one day, hot the next. That's a lot of work for your heating and air unit. But the guys at Trade Pros, they got you covered. Sign up for one of their no-hassle service plans. You can go pro, become elite, or the best deal's the MVC, most valuable customer. They'll come out twice a year and tune up your AC and your furnace. You get priority scheduling, and you get additional discounts. Just call Chris at Trade Pros, 405-316-0598. That's 405-316-0598. Or go to TradeProsOKC.com.
On Twitter, you can follow SI Sooners at all_Sooners. Ryan's at Radios Ryan. Who's at Johnny Hoover. I'm at Josh M. Callaway. Our website is allsooners.com. We are a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. Okay, now, obviously, we let it off with it. Didn't really get to talk about it much. There's just so much. There's so much going on with this team, it seems like, all the time. But it is National Signing Day, so Oklahoma has made a lot of additions, obviously, to the team. We'll start off real quick with Gentry Williams, who did sign today. We talked about him obviously last week a little bit. We've talked about him in the past. He's been committed to OU since October, but he was kind of, whenever the coaching staff changes happened, he kind of took a step back. He never decommitted, but he just kind of waited. He didn't take the early signing period. He came around. He reaffirmed his commitment. And then he signed today, which means that Venables and Roof, could finally talk about him because he can't talk about the guy until they signed. So Venables got to go at length talking about Gentry Williams today. Said some really cool stuff. Said he was born to be a Sooner. Tons of cool things about Gentry Williams, who obviously in your neck of the woods, you've seen him play in person, right? At least a couple times, at least once, I'm sure. Finally signs today, and obviously a guy that Oklahoma is really excited about.
Yeah, Brent talked about his mom sending him a photo of Gentry literally in his birth crib or cradle or whatever that is at the hospital with an OU shirt on. Said he was born to be a Sooner, like you said. So that's a cool story. But where this thing boils down to me is he said never at any time did we feel like we were close to losing his commitment. He committed in he committed in November. And then when the transition happened in December, he said we had to screw it up. He said he was committed. There was a coaching change, a transition, some questions from everybody, but he let his allegiance be known. And this is a 4-star defensive back. This is the number 1 player in the state of Oklahoma in the class of 2022. It's an absolute priority. After Josh Proctor goes to Ohio State, after Dax goes to Michigan. For them to get Gentry Williams in that context and have him say a Booker T guy, they've not fared well with Booker T. And we talked about that when he signed, or I'm sorry, when he committed. Mm-hmm. For them to get a Booker T guy, lock him down early, and then withstand a coaching change, defensive coordinator, cornerbacks coach, safeties coach, everybody's leaving. And he just reaffirms his commitment. Now he wanted to wait and make sure, and he did that. But like Brent said, never at any time did we feel like he was not committed to Oklahoma. So it's such a huge get for OU right now to get him on the dotted line.
Absolutely. He'll come in and be a corner. Brent Venables confirmed that. I know there was some questions just because Booker T used him everywhere. I mean, obviously he's a guy that played quarterback early in his career.
Right.
The 2 times I saw him this year, they had him playing at safety, basically like a free safety, roving around the middle of the field. He played at linebacker at times and a rush pat. Like he did just a little bit of everything, but they'll come in, start him at corner. And it's a different level of athlete than Oklahoma has had. Just when it comes to what he brings as far as his speed and just his instincts, right? His instincts for the football. It's a huge get. And to get that in your own backyard And it completes that trio, right, of guys that I know John's a big fan of Robert Spears Jennings and Jaden Rowe as well, but that's 3 Tulsa kids who could conceivably come in, be 3 of your 5 starters in the secondary here in 2 or 3 years, and not be guys that people are groaning about saying, oh my gosh, these Tulsa kids are like, no, it'll be a point of pride if everything works out the way that it might on paper, because all 3 of those guys have shown incredible flashes here, especially Rowe and Spears Jennings kind of closing strong, because we all knew the caliber of athlete Gentry is.
Yeah, and you talk about the Tulsa connection. I mean, those 2 kids that I mentioned, Dax Hill from Booker T and Josh Proctor from Owasso, Tulsa. And to lose both of them indicates that you're somehow losing a foothold in the city of Tulsa, second biggest city in the state. Arguably, probably inarguably, the best high school football in the state. I think Gentry Williams reminds me, maybe not quite as long and lean, maybe not quite as rangy, but maybe a little more explosive. He reminds me of Stephen Parker from Jenks, who came in, played for most of 4 seasons, made some game-changing plays later in his career. And he's still kicking around in the NFL. And then, think about Dax Hill. He's going to the NFL a year early right now. So to lose players of that caliber to other schools, other players like Michigan, Ohio State, tells you that, there was a disconnect in the city of Tulsa with the OU program. And, for them to come in and nail down the number 1 player in the state, I think 3 years in a row now, maybe 4 years in a row, and Gentry Williams being the latest one, that shows you what kind of work that they're doing.
Yeah, fun fact about Josh Proctor, since you brought him up, went to high school with him, kind of. He was a freshman, I was a senior, so there's a big gap, but yeah, he went to Ohio State and it was really good. He's still there, right? He was like in his 7th season. He's been there forever. Anyway, very good player. And yeah, like you said, kind of turning that tide, getting those good Tulsa guys to come to Norman, extremely important. And so a big signing there for Oklahoma. Now we'll just keep it going in order. These are the rest of the guys who signed today were new commits. People, obviously these were not guys who have been blocks for OU for a long time or anything. We've been waiting, and now they're official today. We'll do them in order. R. Mason Thomas got it started after Gentry, of course. He's a 3-star edge from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Cardinal Gibbons High School. 6'2", 215, so he's not real big. I mean, he is. You get what I'm saying. He's not huge or something. Kind of an athletic guy, can get off his blocks. He's a speedy, get into the backfield type. Just thoughts on him. We'll kind of go through each guy and what they add to the table. Either one of you guys can hop in there.
Yeah, speed and physicality. That's what you look at his highlights. They're at allseniors.com. These guys, highlights are at allseniors.com. Hop up over there if you're curious. But he's just, it's hard to explain. But when you watch the tape the last 2 or 3 years, it's a lot of guys that fire off the football very quickly, and then you don't have to really see them shed a ton of blocks because they're already in the backfield. This whole crop, but especially R. Mason Thomas, yes, they're going to fire off the football quickly, but they also have plenty of times they're just trucking offensive linemen and delivering big hits here in the backfield. So That's a big time one. And look, if you don't believe me, I'm no expert. He's had an Iowa State offer, right? The way that they've been churning out defense, and he was an Iowa State commit. This is an unofficial
he
flip from Iowa State to Oklahoma. That should be really all anyone needs to know about the quality, because Iowa State has just done a phenomenal job evaluating and nailing some of these, under the radar guys.
He's 6'2", 215, and when you see that as an edge rusher, you're like, wait a minute, that's not nearly big enough. He's more in the Eric Stryker mold, where he's more of an effort guy. Eric Stryker came to Oklahoma as a safety, put on a few pounds, and they said, you know what, you need to be getting after the quarterback, and moved him to the edge. He's probably a little more well-built than Stryker, probably not on that level in terms of just all-out effort. Stryker could take on a Cyrus Kwanjo from Alabama and make him look bad because of that speed and effort, never say die kind of play by play by play. So he's got a little bit to get to that level, but I think on the whole, that's kind of the category that he fits in.
Next up, 3-star athlete Jamarian. I hope I said that right. Jamarian Burt from Ocala, Florida. So it was a big day in the Sunshine State for Oklahoma. They bring him aboard. He'll play defense, of course. It's all defense today. These are all defensive additions. He kind of did it all at Forest High School there in Ocala. Just one of those guys who's just a really good football player. So just give him the ball. Kind of he returned punts. I saw on his highlight. I mean, he kind of did everything out there in Florida. But he'll play defense. Athletic guy. Ryan, what does Mr. Burt bring to the table here?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure what position he exactly projects to. If I had to guess right now, I'd probably start him at safety just because, like you said, Josh, he's played everywhere. So he's played a ton of football. He understands what's going on. Safety, you can kind of let the reins off there a little bit, and you can be a little bit more instinctive at that position. But Brent Venables today said, look, he's a guy that they look at him and he can play all 5 positions across the back in the secondary. The frame that he's got, he's 6'1", but I think don't have it right in front of me. I think he's still only like 170. So there's some filling out of that frame that they could do if they need him to play as like a pinch coverage linebacker or something like that. So basically, he's just a really raw as far as what position exactly he can play. But like you said, Josh, he's just played a ton of football in Florida, which means a lot, and he stands out on screen athletically.
He reminds me of, I know this is going to be a reach, but like you said, he could play all 5 positions. I think he's a corner. You said you think he's a safety. I think he's a corner, but when he comes in, safety is a very complicated and complex position in Brent Venables' defense. I remember guys coming in saying, yeah, this is no problem. And they'd be like, no, you know what? Reggie Smith, for instance, or Zach, what's his name? Zach Sanchez. Yeah, go step over there at corner for a little while because safety's a little bit heady. You know what I mean? You go play a position where you can be more instinctive, more reactive. So I think a guy with this skill set coming in, I think he's got the skills of a cover corner. I think he can play that position. I don't know if that's where he's eventually going to end up. But here's my comparison. And again, I think you might think it's a little bit of a reach, but maybe not. I think he's a longer, taller, more explosive Buki Radley-Hiles. He could roll down and play the nickel, that nickel corner that, when you got a offense coming out with 3 wides, 4 wides, and you don't know what to do with that slot guy. Is he going to run something underneath? Is he going to run in motion behind the formation? You get a smaller corner that can get out there and cover that position. I think that's a possibility as well. And that's a position where it does require some thinking, but it's not to the level of those deep safeties.
Right. The biggest fish of the day, at least in terms of star ranks rating, was Grayson Halton from San Diego, California guy. So Oklahoma is able to still pull from California, even without Lincoln Riley, still able to get a California kid. Grayson Halton comes across, 4-star defensive line, like I said, St. Augustine High School. 6'3", 270. I mean, he just looks like a good football player. He's wreaking havoc in his, like Ryan said, we have highlight videos for you on allstars.com. Go get a couple minutes of what they do. He's just a football player. He's a good one. He's making things happen. Ryan, it seems to me that he's going to be good. I mean, of anybody, of the guys they got, if you made me put money on one of them to be, that guy for sure is going to start for Oklahoma eventually, I would probably bet on Grayson Halton.
Yeah, for sure. Also, sidebar, people did not like that opening sentence of Lincoln Riley's gone, but Oklahoma can still go into California. They just want to be done with him. Just be done with him. But no, you're exactly right, Josh. He's the guy that when you talk about just a very compact, just muscular guy, like the explosiveness is just very evident as far as he can just flat out blow people up, man. Like it doesn't matter how hard he fires off the football because he will physically just overpower you. He's a guy that I look at and I'm just like, okay, if this is what you're starting with, what's Schmitty going to do? Like they're already pounding the chest that Schmitty's already put 7 pounds on Caden Helms since he got a hold of him to start or something like that. So, and he's a guy too that Brent Venables went out of his way to be like, also, he plays all the football in the world. Like Brent was like, I don't know how he played that many snaps at his size and was still that effective. So he's a guy that's obviously a high motor workhorse kind of guy by far. The like you said, he's the headline guy as far as the new pickups, and it all worked out because Brent Venables basically said like, yeah, as soon as the Oregon staff change happened, they just pulled up. They're like, all right, who can we go after? And he was one. They're like, yep, we need on him. So worked out for Oklahoma, taking advantage of a coaching change.
How about that? That was fascinating to me also, the fact that that's now a tactic. I mean, it's probably always been a tactic, but you've got a coaching staff here at Oklahoma who expresses this is how we handle things. When there's a coaching change at another big time Power Five school, we're going to look at their roster. We're going to see who's in the transfer portal. So
Yeah.
he's a guy that, if you guys remember the quote from Calvin Thibodeau last preseason, I think it was, when he was talking about Isaiah Coe being the most explosive guy or most powerful guy on the defensive line as a JUCO transfer. That's what Halton reminds me of, is that, contact, pushing guys back, explosive power at the point of attack, disrupting a one-on-one block, defeating a one-on-one block with pretty good consistency. He's very powerful, guys. He's very powerful. He's, like Ryan said, very compact. He's 270 pounds. He's packed that into a 6'3" frame, but man, he's got long arms and can get separation off of blockers. So that's something that, as a young guy, you've got these gifts. You're going to be able to step in and contribute, I would think, right away. At least get yourself into the rotation early on.
Yeah, and if you're only going to watch one highlight tape of any of the guys, that'd be the one. He's 6'2", 270. I don't know if you guys watched the tape or not, but they would line him up at receiver and tight end, and he would moss people, and it's nuts. They would just throw him jump balls, and that big man would get out there and catch tutties, and it's electric. So
the first time
insane.
the first time I ever pulled up his film, the very first play is a play where he goes over the middle and just plucks a ball out of the air, and I was like, I've stumbled across the wrong tape. And then like the next play later,
Right.
he's assaulting a quarterback in the backfield. I'm like, oh, hold on, and I think I watched that catch like over and over and over. I was like, what is happening here?
I'm going through his tape, and it's like 3 or 4 sacks in a row or whatever, and then the next play starts, and he's set out wide. I'm like, is this somebody else got mixed in here? He's literally on an island one-on-one, and they throw him a fade. They threw him a fade, and he just went over the top of this cornerback and just completely mossed him. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like that with what they – because it's not even like a tight end. Like, they would split him out wide, one-on-one. That's nuts. That's an athlete, man. That guy's nuts. So definitely go check that out. It's right there for you on allsooners.com. Last of the new commits today was another flip from Michigan. Kevontae Henry, linebacker. Really excited about him, too. 6'4", 225. He's from California, Lawndale, California. He's a 3-star. He's rated as an edge / linebacker. I don't really know exactly where he's going to end up, but he's kind of just a playmaker type. He actually somebody who kind of reminds me, this is a cheating because who just said it, but striker-ish, kind of comes off the edge. Not, he's 6'4", so he's taller, but, it's just kind of in the backfield, going to make plays type of guy. Like, he's good for like a big strip and a big spot or something, kind of like, one of those type of players. I think Kevontae Henry has a chance to be really good. What say you, Ryan?
Yeah, I do too. I'm just curious to see what they do with him, because I think this is a guy they'll have to make a decision. He can come in, put a little bit more weight on him, and almost immediately, I think you're fighting for one of those NASCAR package type defensive ends, right? A little bit undersized defensive end who's just going to get upfield in a hurry. You mentioned there, Josh, he's got those speed pass rush moves, or do you want to keep him a little bit leaner and cultivate him as kind of an outside linebacker that's just going to be a handful? Either way, another one of those guys that you talk about the physicality. It's something that Brent Venables talked about, right? It was the biggest applause line in his like pep rally thing, right? Of physical, aggressive, hard hitting, all that stuff. These guys, it looks different. It looks different. It's similar height, similar weights, all that stuff, but it's not the merry band of basketball players that Alex Grinch brought in last year to try and teach how to play football. These guys have legitimate instincts to build on it. It's just a matter of the defensive staff making a decision of what they want to mold him into.
Yeah, when you think of Michigan edge rushers, I mean, what comes to mind? Aiden Hutchinson, right? Possible number 1 pick in the NFL draft. When a guy is committed to Michigan's current staff, Jim Harbaugh and the defensive staff that he's got, they're looking at guys that fit that mold, that Aiden Hutchinson mold, which is a, number 1 overall draft pick, which is 6'4", 6'5", 225, 230, gets around the court, gets past the quarterback, put on some weight later in their careers, gets to the quarterback, beats that first block, disrupts the offensive game plan. That's what Michigan defensive line has been the last few years. So to get a guy from Michigan who that was their plan for him, the kid can play. He can absolutely play. Henry is the way he comes off the edge. He's got some bad intention. He's got some anger to his game, and he doesn't mind hitting. He doesn't mind hitting a little bit on the borderline, kind of. You know what I mean? He'll push the envelope, so to speak.
He'll throw you around.
Yes, he can hit you a little bit late. He's an intimidating player. He's an intimidating force. So I predict that this is another kid that's going to get in there and at least challenge for early playing time, just because he's so physical and he's got that edge to him, that attitude.
Yeah, go look at his highlight tape. Because I vote him most likely to have a career as a WWE superstar if he doesn't make it to the league.
Yeah, I was going to say there's one play in particular, and I included in this tape because it's crazy, where the quarterback steps up in the pocket and takes off running, and he's got like a 15-yard head start on him, and he just runs him down. I mean, he's an athletic, right down the middle of the field, just ran him down, and so he's going to be a fun player as well. 6'4", got great height and size. I mean, he's an exciting player frame. You're one of those guys where, I'm so far from any kind of like a scout or anybody, but it's one of those guys you watch the tape and you're kind of thinking 3-star. He looks better. He just looks, looks like I don't know. It looks like he should have a higher rating than that, but what do I know? You know what I mean? So he looks really fun and could be another good player. So that's the 4 new commits they had today. They have several preferred walk-ons they brought in. I want to at least highlight a couple of them because they're in state. Obviously, we all pay attention to Oklahoma high school sports, high school football. And so you kind of want to give them a little bit of attention. 2, you have Eric Mccarty, who's running back, and he plays some defense too, I believe, for McAllister, who was runner-up last year. Really fun player. Again, we have highlight tapes of these guys as well. Really fun guy. It's fun to see the Oklahoma kids get in there with the big school. And so Eric McCarty from McAllister comes in as preferred walked on, and then also Gavin Freeman from Heritage Hall comes in as well. He's a receiver athlete. I'm not sure if he's going to play defense mainly or what, to be totally honest with you. Hoover made the highlight video for him, but he's a fun player too. I saw him once in high school. So a couple of Oklahoma kids getting in there, which is always cool to see.
Yeah, real quick, house cleaning. McCarty's a 2023 guy, so trying to figure that out. That was a junior day commit.
Sorry, I should have cleared that up.
Yeah, he's a junior day commit, and then Freeman will come in, and I would say he probably plays wide receiver. And just pull out that Heritage Hall record book, and you'll see Wes Welker, Gavin Freeman. That's always a good sign.
Freeman's special. And it's an instant comparison with Wes Welker because they both go to Heritage. They're both 5'9", and then you got a guy in Welker who's just putting up sick numbers at Texas Tech. Remember now, he was the guy at Heritage who the only guy that wanted him was Mike Leach. Then Mike Leach goes to Texas Tech and says, "Hey, come on over here." Oh, you still didn't offer him. Oh, you still didn't want him. And so that's something that I think Brent Venables probably said, last time that happened, the guy was pretty good, so let's go out and make sure we lock this kid up. Preferred walk-on? Sure. Yeah. He had offers from Tech, Tulsa, and Air Force. He's a Division I player, and for him to, his dad played at OU. Jason Freeman played for Howard Schnellenberger and John Blake as a tight end. He was Steven Alexander's backup, so that tells you how good he was coming out of Muskogee. His dad is Ron Freeman, Hall of Fame football coach. Jason's dad is, so his Gavin's grandfather is. So you're talking about a football bloodline here and a football kind of royalty a little bit. And for him to come out of high school with these numbers and look at some of the stuff, look at some of the moves that he makes in that highlight video where it looks like he's going to get chased down, and he turns at a 45-degree angle and runs away from the guy to get a little more space and separation, and then outruns him to the end zone. Kid's got unbelievable skills, so I can't wait to see him play. I think he's going to have a really good career. He's in that Drake Stoops mold. I think he's better, more explosive maybe than Drake. He's going to have to work, again, as a young person, as a young player, to get on Drake's level where Drake is right now. And then McCarty, man, you talk about prolific. Freeman's got like 1,500 yards receiving, 18 touchdowns last year. And then McCarty's got 2,000-yard rushing seasons. Now, who knows?
Stupid.
Out of McAllister, so who knows how this is going to shake out? We've seen kids come out of McAllister before, and some of them panned out, some of them didn't. He's got a bloodline too. His dad was a player at Oklahoma, I think a walk-on. I looked for him in the Letterman's list, and he doesn't show up, so it doesn't appear that he played in any games. I could be wrong. That might need to be corrected, but as it stands right now, the Letterman's list doesn't reflect. But his dad played college football, so and he's got that love for OU. And here's the thing, guys. Here's maybe the most important part, is that Brent Venables is like putting up a fence around the state of Oklahoma, and he's saying, all you kids that have been going to all these other schools that have the talent to play at OU, we want you here at OU. If you got to be a preferred walk-on, be a preferred walk-on, and we'll get you a scholarship later. I think he's kind of putting his foot down when it comes to local kids, and I think that's huge. I think that's it really appeals to a lot of the fans around here who say, how come we don't offer more Oklahoma kids? How come all these Oklahoma kids are going off to other schools? This helps kind of settle that a little bit. When you've got a McAllister running back who goes for over 2K twice, and he goes off and plays for TCU or SMU or somebody like that, that really rankles the fan base. Well, get him at Oklahoma, and whether he's a 22 or a 23 or a scholarship or a walk-on, whatever, get that kid in and have him. That helps with the fans. It helps with the local coaches, the Oklahoma Coaches Association. Those guys that are sending those kids out. Well, I'm not going to send them to Oklahoma. It's just a good thing all around. And then guess what? The bonus is, kid's got talent. He can play football, so he can help you if you're Oklahoma.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's continuing this trend of Oklahoma under Brent Venables making a more concerted effort to recruit Oklahoma. And it's something that you've seen. John Finley is just like him, and it's not just him, but other coaches. They're just bouncing around hitting all these high schools. And did you guys see I think it was Carl Albert, their tweet, when they tweeted, "Thank you, John Finley, for coming out today," or whatever. It is so nice to have Oklahoma in Oklahoma schools again, or something like that. Something to that degree, which basically like, no, OU wasn't paying attention to us before in the past regime. So I think that is kind of a cool thing. It all works together. And obviously Oklahomans protect their own, and they get excited when Oklahoma kids get their chance at the big school. So I think it is cool. And I think both guys have a chance. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's preferred walk-on, but they both have a chance to blossom into something. It happens all the time. Obviously Drake Stoops is one of them who was a preferred walk-on when he started. And now, OU fans love him, and he actually is a very productive receiver and a guy that Oklahoma's happy to have. So we'll see how both those guys pan out. Real quick, one more. Stand-up Jay Nunez, already paying dividends, landing a 5-star punter, Brady Braun from Indianapolis, Indiana too, pulling from Big Ten country even. Jay Nunez, he's 5-star punter from Cole's Kicking Camp. That's who rates kickers and punters. You're not going to get a 247 or a Rivals rating on a kicker or punter, so that's not uncommon. But a 5-star punter, and he's coming to Oklahoma. So obviously you have Michael Turk next year. He's coming back. But theoretically, you got yourself a pretty darn good punter right there. He was an Under Armour All-American as a punter. So pretty cool. That's got to be hard to do. I can't imagine that's easy to do. And he did it. So that's kind of a cool pickup there for Oklahoma as well. Also, I don't know who the kicker is next year. So throw him in there too, as far as I don't know who the kicker is. Gabe Burkich is gone. There's no obvious kicker on this team. So,
well, I don't know if you saw, but there was a photo of posted by the OU women's soccer team of Brent Venables in the locker room doing a pep talk to the young ladies. So my guess is he might be in there recruiting. Brent Venables, always recruiting.
Oh, yes, I know. Yeah, the soccer team. Yeah, the soccer team photo. He doesn't need a kicker, like you said. Brian, any thoughts on Braun?
Yeah, can Braun vlog or can he play safety? The bar's been set really high for a punter at Oklahoma, so that's the first two questions I need asked.
Right. He also inadvertently caught a Colin Cowherd ricochet, if you guys saw that.
Yes.
Brady Braun, of all people, he probably never thought in a million years that he would catch a Colin Cowherd ricochet, but he did, because he commits on the same day that Caleb Williams goes to USC. And so USC introduces Caleb Williams to USC, And Colin Cowherd quote tweeted and said, meanwhile, Oklahoma signed a punter today, or a really good punter today, or something like that, trying to make fun of OU, when in reality, Brady Braun is a good punter. And Jay Nunez, no, you did a good job bringing him in. So he probably is sitting at home just saying, wow, I got Colin Cowherd jumping all over me. Didn't expect that, but there you go.
Colin Cowherd shade. I mean, your career is off to a great start if Colin Cowherd is throwing shade at you.
The other players he doesn't like, Baker and Russell Westbrook, are Oklahoma royalty. So he's on a very good start, Mr. Brady Braun.
Can I say
we'll go ahead and take a timeout. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that Colin Cowherd was unbearable when he was trying to be best friends with Pete Carroll. This is the worst thing to come out of this whole thing, is Colin Cowherd's return to pompous Colin Cowherdery.
He hates Oklahoma. Just the state. Not even OU, just the state. I don't know what happened.
If it's not LA, it's not about
state
him.
Hurt him at some point. Somebody from this state hurt him in a bad way at some point. Because, like I said, his biggest enemies, Baker, Russell Westbrook, and now just OU in general. He is doing anything he can.
Colin Cowherd needs some guardrails.
Absolutely, boy. And you got him, and you got Joel Klatt, who I really like. Talking about USC's going to be in the playoff. Just stop. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? It's ridiculous. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll get into other sports. There's one last football thing I want to get into at the start of the next segment, and then we'll get into other sports. Jenny Voronchek is the greatest coach who ever lived, not to be hyperbolic, but it's insane what she's doing. We'll talk about all that coming up next on the SI Sooners podcast.
Hey, are you a business owner looking to get your product out there to the masses? Let's say you run a hotel in Norman, or a car dealership in Oklahoma City, or a restaurant in Edmond, or maybe you're a small online business who creates and sells OU merchandise, and you just want Sooner Nation to come sample your wares. Well, then consider advertising in this space right here on the SI Sooners podcast. SI Sooners reaches thousands of readers, viewers, and listeners literally every day, and the SI Sooners podcast is the ideal place to find your next customer. To advertise, send an email to allsoonersi@gmail.com or DM us on Twitter at all_Sooners.
Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast here on a Wednesday night, a snowy Wednesday night, as we wrap up and we get ready to plunge into other stuff. We'll wrap up a little bit of football here. One last little piece of news that we got today. Kind of got lost in the shuffle because it's just so many other things going on. Obviously, National Signing Day and what have you, but OU continues. Their staff is an army. I mean, my goodness. It's like they might have more staff members than players by the time it's all said and done. They add another one today, JP Losman, who you may remember if you're just a really big football fan. He was a quarterback for the Bills for a while. He played at Tulane, was a first-round pick of the Bills, and kind of bounced around a little bit. He was, of course, probably not surprising you, was at Clemson the last few years, was an analyst there, a senior offensive analyst is what it was referred to last year. He comes to Oklahoma. He's going to work in football personnel and player personnel, I should say, and football administration. So kind of a cool pickup here. I don't know what it means, but obviously a guy who played in the NFL for like 7-8 years comes and is just another guy on your staff. I know I've said this a lot with all these guys, but it feels like it can only help, and it continues to show that Oklahoma is really committed to just giving Brent Venables whatever he wants. I mean, my gosh, this staff is ginormous.
Yeah, he's got carte blanche on the support staff side. And the interesting thing, too, is that he kind of got roped into the presser today. As far as when Kersey asked about Kinnick, he also asked just, hey, the Clemson staff. And I thought that was pretty interesting that Brent was kind of just like, I mean, I've known these guys for a decade, so I'm going to hit them up and say, hey, I'd like to be a coach. And if you want to come, great. And if not, great. And that's how a ton of Clemson guys have wound up in Norman.
Absolutely. Who, any thoughts on Mr. Losman?
No, not really. I mean, it's fascinating that that Brent has been given the green light to hire all these additional staffers. When you look at Lincoln's staff, it's going to be 3 times the size of Lincoln's staff. And it probably, I get the feeling that Lincoln is like looking back at it going, well, how come I didn't get that? How come I asked for those, and I asked for those guys, and I asked for that support staff, and I asked for that position. And I get the feeling that Joe Castiglione was like opened up the pocketbook now that Lincoln has done what he did. Joe's like, oh yeah, Watch this. Watch this. Watch all these zeros on the end of this check I write for staffers now. I don't know.
It's crazy.
Joe's not probably that petty. He probably doesn't look at life like you and me. But I can't help but think
I
that
think
there's
he is.
something. I think there's something to it.
John,
the
you don't
they
mess
don't
with the
call it
mob.
the Godfather for nothing.
Yeah, you don't mess with the mob.
He
You
is
mess
the
with the mob.
Godfather. Yeah, no, you mess with the mob. You mess with the legacy of Bob Stoops. Bob handpicks his successor, and what does he do? He turns coats and goes to another family, right? So the Godfather steps in and says, "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hire more capos." Interesting stuff.
Unbelievable.
It's also interesting that they're bringing back so many of these former players. Josh Norman, Curtis Lofton, and Caleb Kelly are among the guys who are on this. I don't even know what it's called. SOUL, which stands for SOUL, stands for Serving Our Uncommon Legacy. Okay. This is from a story from I think Ryan Aber in the Oklahoman. Yeah. Where, a bunch of former players are going to come in and they're going to do community outreach. They're going to lift up the current staff, the current players. I mean, it's going to be a more of a holistic position. I don't know what their salaries are going to be, but these are former players who've been through it, gone off and done other things in life, and they're coming back to help the program. So I think that's really cool. I look forward to talking to some of these guys and seeing what exactly it's about, because it's very nebulous right now, the whole thing, exactly what their role is going to be.
Yeah, the staff is gigantic. Miguel Chavis posted that photo, and it's an army. It's an army of guys, and they're obviously, we talked about it before, but Brent Venables and this staff continue to put a very big emphasis on former players, taking care of former players. I think it was Kenny Stills had a tweet either today or yesterday saying, like, I haven't really talked to OU or been at OU in a long time, but I've been talking to Coach Venables and I plan to be more involved moving forward. That's kind of how it is, with Brent Venables. So it's going to be very different. We talked about that before, and it's cool to get the former players kind of back around, and obviously a lot of them, coming on staff. But it seems like Caleb Kelly is going to be the just kind of float around the program guy forever. He was at the last basketball game, and I was like, he's going to just be around at things forever. Like, he's going to just always be around.
He's a great ambassador. Guys like that are ambassadors for, transitioning from being a college player to being an NFL player. Here's my experience. Or being a college player to what should I major in? Here's my experience. There's a lot of things that go into being a college player that, again, the holistic approach has often been overlooked. And it is lift weights, wake up early, run stadium steps, play football, go to school, do all these things in this order. And, these are people we're talking about. These are other human beings that are trying to, be great, productive members of society. And it helps to have some people that have been through that can help you, guide you, if you will, through that very difficult phase. So I think it's cool. I think it's something that's really going to help the program. It's something that Brent, being so familiar with the program that he is, something that he's looking at going, what we need? We need one of these. And I don't know if they had that at Clemson, but it's something that is apparently important to him. So it's something that's going to help for sure.
Absolutely. So that staff continues to grow. I imagine they'll make even more additions by the next week's show, because they just continue to do it. And we'll be able to talk about some more coaches they've added on next week's show, because that's just how it's been the last 18 podcasts. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into some other sports here.
Oh, hey, Josh.
Yeah.
I forgot. We should probably finish up talking about recruiting. Finish up football talking about recruiting. Oklahoma finished higher in the recruiting rankings this year under Brent Venables. After their recruiting, basically everything was set on fire and left for dead. Oklahoma finished higher this year in the recruiting rankings than they did last year, when Lincoln Riley was a recruiting genius and his staff was thinking next level, and they were redefining remember the new age thinking of recruiting, and they're number 9 in the country. This class 2022 finished number 9 in the country, according to SI All-American, the SI 99 or whatever, John Garcia's group over at SI. He ranks the whole class, every school, number 9. Last year they finished number 12. And I thought, is that something that's just, John has the way he's looking at Venables, the way he's looking at some of these guys was, it's even bigger. It's an even bigger disparity when you look at the rivals ranking. Number 8 this year, number 8 in 24/7 and number 8 in rivals. Last year, they were 13 in rivals and 10 in 24/7. So, I mean, I don't really
Pretty
know what that
remarkable.
says, but it says something. It says that all is not lost. The attitude. Oklahoma fans have been saying for the past 2 months, everything's better now than it was when Riley was here. Everything's been. And as an objective journalist, you're trying to look at all the information, look at all the data, and say, is it really? Is it really? Are you sure? Or are you just wanting it to be? You're just hoping that it is. Well, empirically, you look at the data, you look at the recruiting rankings, and across the board, Oklahoma's recruiting ranking without Lincoln Riley is better than what it was with Lincoln Riley. And we're talking 2022 comparing to 21. So that's got to be something that you look at if you're a fan and you say, I knew it. I knew there was something good happening. I knew there was something good going on. So, that's good news for Oklahoma.
No, yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, the narrative that's going to go all off season of USC is going to be this championship contender right away is going to be just vomit inducing because it's just ridiculous. The same thing goes the other side of that coin, which is just the collapse of Oklahoma and that they're just going to go in the toilet, which is going to be thrown out there a ton.
They're not going to be the SEC's Nebraska?
Yeah, we've seen it's so many national outlets have put out there that OU is going to just go in the toilet and they're just going to fall into a pit of despair next year. Like they're not going to be a contender for the Big 12. And it's just, again, like the USC is going to be amazing right away. It's ridiculous. I mean, just look at it's not that bad. It's fine. Like they're going to be better in some areas. They won't be as good in some areas. They're probably not going to have as good a quarterback play consistently every year. They're not going to have 60-point offenses like they did with Kyler and Baker, but they're probably going to be better on defense. It's probably going to work out about the same. They're probably going to be about the same in terms of winning the Big 12 regularly. It's going to just look different. You know what I mean? So it is silly, just silly.
I think some important context, too, when you talk about last year's recruiting rankings to this year's recruiting rankings, you have to remember Oklahoma signed like 3 guys last year. Remember, that was the intentionally small class because of the portal. But here's the thing. You just saw it this year. When you sign an intentionally small class, if anything goes wrong, guys, a lot of these offensive players might have hit the portal if Lincoln Riley had stayed due to frustration with how this year goes. In this era of college football, you cannot afford to sign under 20 guys because if situations change and you have a portal exodus for any reason, you are screwed. You are picking off the trash heap, just hoping that you can find guys that fit. So, I know that that's an important, like why the ranking was so low and look at average, all that stuff, but it plays into, you have to be able to have some roster construction and keep that roster just populated with quality players. This year's coaching staff did a fantastic job of ensuring they are at a spot that they're going to be comfortable with numbers wise, as well as quality of those guys.
There's nothing wrong with recruiting depth and numbers.
Absolutely.
I think it was the total last year, 15 guys total, or maybe it was 16 with Isaiah Coe from junior college. You're right. 2 or 3 of those guys don't pan out, and all of a sudden you're looking at half the class is either transfers or they're backups for their entire career, or they never pan out into what you thought they were going to be. And that's a small number when they get to the end of their career. So I was looking at Caleb Kelly posted that photo of the 2016 freshman class that he was a member of.
I believe so.
And I was looking and I was like, okay. So I recognize Ben Powers. He was a junior college transfer. And I recognize, this is a team that I covered. And I recognize Eric Swenson. He's a 6th-year guy too. Who are the rest of these guys? He posted a photo of the entire class. And I'm like, Caleb Kelly, Eric Swenson, Ben Powers. Who are the rest of these guys? That's a class that just didn't pan out very well numbers wise. And I think that's what you're referring to, Ryan, is if you got a small class and they don't pan out, you are screwed, and it hurts for more than 1 year.
Absolutely. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. Pretty productive, obviously, recruiting class for Oklahoma. Brent Venables said today that everybody they had visited committed to OU except for one, which was Ahmad Moten. He ended up going to Miami. But everybody else they got, which, as Brent Venables put it, is a pretty good hit rate. So Can't argue with that. So there you go.
That's a great term, isn't it? We had a good hit rate.
Very Venables. It's very
you hit them
Venables.
all except one. That's really good.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
it's
very
not
Venables.
as good as sweat equity, but I was surprised that our friend Garen hadn't heard of
Sweat Equity
before. Yeah. Not a big rock guy.
That was Ted Roof, right?
Yeah, that was Roof. Roof with the sweat equity. Garen must not watch The Rock's morning workout videos.
Yeah, he's not a big. Yeah, I could see that. Anyway, we'll wrap up with some basketball. The game ended while we were recording. Guys, I don't really know what else to say about Jenny Baranchek. I mean, it's insane. It is insane. They killed OSU, beat them by like 30. They beat top 10 Texas on not a buzzer beater, I don't believe, but it was right at the end, that shot. It wasn't a buzzer beater, but it was like a shot with like 5 seconds left. And then tonight, they go into Waco against top 10 Baylor. The game was delayed. It was pushed back because of weather. Their flight got canceled. They had to bus there. They got there like 20 minutes before tip. They basically got off the bus, got in, got dressed, played, and beat Baylor in Waco. And that's a sweep because they already beat Baylor once before. It's insane. It's insane. I don't know the words. It's hyperbolic to say like best coaching hire of all time, obviously. But man, Joe Castiglione crushed this. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was Liz Scott again, by the way. She has made a habit of coming up clutch here for the Sooners. They had to go back down, defend after. This was another instance where she hit the shot. I think there were 6 seconds left. And go back, defend on the other end, escape with the win, and party time in Waco. The first time Oklahoma has swept the Baylor Bears since 2009. That is a long time for a program that it used to be OU and Baylor at the top of the Big 12, duking it out, 2 heavyweights, Final Four contenders every year. Jenny Baranchek, I don't know how in a week where they goosed Oklahoma State and then beat Texas that they remained stagnant at number 18 in the rankings. So they said, screw it. We'll just go on the road and beat a top 10 Baylor team. Yeah.
Hoof, this is nuts. I mean, the turnaround in year one, I can't really compare it to anything else I've seen.
They're 19-3. Last year, Sherry's last year, they were right around 500 in both conference and overall. And the girls, I think I've mentioned this before, the girls on post-game press conferences, Zooms and whatnot, have talked about basketball is fun. I haven't had this much fun playing basketball since I was in high school. I feel like I'm free. They've made reference to that over and over and over this season. And when you see them interact with the coach and you see the coach interact with them, during timeouts or as they're coming off the floor or and maybe there's video that you see emerge from practice or whatever, it's pretty remarkable that she has gotten this team full of players who are back, who all played for Sherry, to buy into a completely different mindset. It's like she's this whiz sports psychologist or something, that she's gotten them to think a certain way and believe a certain way and by product of it play a certain way. It's unbelievable to watch. Where it's like there is no way, none of us would have picked Oklahoma to be in first place at this stage of this college basketball season and women's basketball. No way. 0% chance. And if you ask Jenny Baranchek, I think she got that question a couple of weeks ago, and she said, yeah, no, I something along the lines of, I don't think I would have picked us to do this, but the more she got to know the girls or something like that, the more apparent it became that this could happen. And she's taken it by the reins, man. She's taken this thing over. It's been very impressive to watch.
Yeah, I mean, just seriously incredible. What a hire by Joe Castiglione. I mean, I just can't believe in 1 year the improvement is just absurd. I really don't know the right words because it's hard to find the proper way to put it, what they're doing. Surely they go up this time. Like Ryan said, it was nuts that they crushed OSU and then beat a top 10 Texas team and didn't move in the poll. They stayed at 18. That just seems like malpractice to me. Like, how do you not move up at all after that? But whatever. I mean, they'll move up after this for sure. was pulling up real quick. I should have their schedule handy for who they have up next. Obviously, they'll play this weekend.
West Virginia.
West Virginia. That's here, right? Because they already played in Morgantown.
That's right.
Right. So keep the train rolling. I mean, they already swept Baylor. So I mean, you're kind of already getting through some of the meatier part of your schedule. I mean, I got it now. They got
circle that return trip
to Austin.
State.
Yeah, they got to go to Austin. They got to go to Ames. Those are kind of the big ones. And K-State comes to Norman. Other than that, I mean, they're going to win. They're going to win a lot more games still the rest of the way. I mean, this is a darn good team. It really is. It's going to be fun to watch them in March. Now, speaking of March, I don't know if we're going to see the men in March. They're a mess. I mean, as fun as the women's team is, and like this unbelievable, just meteoric rise that they're on, it is a plummet on the other side. And honestly, you could have like talked me into it still being okay. I mean, they beat West Virginia, great win. Auburn is just a machine. They're so good. They hung in there as best they could, but Auburn is so good, and the jungle is like one of the hardest places to play. Auburn pulled away late. You know, you could have talked me into going to TCU that things were still like okay. That TCU game was bad. It was bad. That's a loss you can't have. And now I'm really questioning if this team's going to make the tournament or not, which is surprising considering where we were in December when we were all at the BOK Center and they just routed Arkansas off the floor. I think we all thought this team has a chance to be really darn good. And now we're sitting here thinking this might be – it's between them and OSU and I guess Kansas State right now for the bottom – the basement of the Big 12, which is, disappointing for obvious reasons. Ryan, I don't know how it gets better. I don't know where you go from here if you're Oklahoma. That TCU loss was really disappointing.
Yeah, here's the big problem. Well, the offense is broken. It's been broken. But, okay, they go out there and they turn the ball over, 5-6 times? By far, their lowest of the season. Previously, 10 against Utah State, which was also a loss, oddly enough, was their lowest turnover game. Then you just get assaulted on the boards. You lost the rebounding battle, 42-20. Porter Moser's like, yeah, you can't do that and win the Big 12. He's like, he was asked, Eric Bailey asked him about the on-ball defense, and he was pretty frustrated. That was also the other constant, is that they play good defense. Even in Waco and Iowa State in Norman, those were the other two games that the opponents had a higher field goal percentage than what TCU shot on Monday. Those were like, okay, Brockington was just unconscious when the Cyclones visited the Lloyd Noble Center in the first half. Baylor made a ton of contested shots. Porter Moser's like, yeah, they were just basically blowing by us, and they just knew if they just threw it up on the glass, if they don't make the layup, they're going to get the rebound and have another shot at it. It was that was the first time that it's incredibly concerning, and this game Saturday in Stillwater is massive because if you have another subpar defensive performance, Porter Moser twice. Bob Prisbillo asked him after Baylor, I think. I asked him after this game, like, are you worried about losing the locker room? Porter's been emphatic, no. But this is where you've got a veteran team, transfer portal wise. Porter is a very energetic guy, but if you lose 10 of 12 or something like that, that's where that energy and positivity – It could turn on him. It could turn on him as far as just guys just tuning him out, saying, got to get to the end of the year and then we're done. Move on to the next stage of your life, stuff like that. It'll be fascinating to see. This Bedlam game is huge.
Yeah, I agree completely, Ryan. I mean, I thought coming into this week, like I said, you could talk me into things are still okay. I was like, if they'll beat TCU at home, you go win Bedlam and Stillwater, and you kind of get back on track. They're still projected to make the tournament. Boy, that TCU game was just so discouraging. Where are your thoughts on? I mean, this team feels like it's slipping through their fingers here as far as the tournament.
Spiraling. They're spiraling for sure. And when you see a guy like Eddie Lampkin, the center for TCU, 7 of 7, was it 14 points and 10 rebounds? Oklahoma doesn't have an answer for that. They're kind of like the Thunder almost in that they don't have a true 5. They've got a bunch of 4s who like to shoot 3s, be stretch 4s. There's a lot. There's a lot of ways to go with Oklahoma. It's like Ryan said. You fix the turnover problems. The best turnover game of the year. I was shocked. I was looking. I was like, what? They're really taking care of the basketball.
I thought it was an error in the stat book.
I did too. I said there's no way. But as you watch the game, you realize they're really taking care of the basketball. They're taking good care of the basketball. But TCU kept getting second shot after second shot after second shot, and defensive rebounds as well. I mean, it was a mismatch. And this is a stretch of Big 12 games. Throw out the Auburn game. That's number one in the country on the road. Best crowd, arguably, in college basketball right now. So throw that one out. This is a stretch of 3 Big 12 games, West Virginia, TCU, Oklahoma State, where you look at the standings, and this is like, these are 3 games. Oklahoma probably should win all 3. You're now teetering on going 1 and 2 if you lose to Oklahoma State over a 3-game stretch that you should be or could be 3-0. Again, maybe you save the season if you beat Oklahoma State and go 2-1 during that stretch. Get hot, turn some things around on offense. It's possible. But this is starting to look more and more like that Trae Young season where every game something new seemed to crop up, some problem seemed to happen, whether it was chemistry or guys not buying in or your leading scorer being held to 4 points or whatever it is. Something happens every game, it seems, where you're just like, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. And yet it's happening, and they keep losing. So what is it, up to 6 out of 7 right now? They're not going to get lucky and win some games. They're going to have to turn some things around to fix this, to win some games.
Sure. I mean, there's 9 games left. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, Auburn's the best crowd in the country, with the exception of when Texas goes to Lubbock.
That was unbelievable. That was amazing TV. That was amazing TV, and it just made me long for Lincoln Riley to come to Norman. It'll never happen, and that hurts me because it would be incredible.
12-team playoff, 5 versus 12, Oklahoma versus USC in Norman. I'm all about it.
It's the only way. That's the only way it would ever happen, and it's depressing because they'll never, ever, ever in a million years schedule it. They'll never do it. So, depressing because that was an unbelievable scene. But I was going to say, 9 games left. They're 3-6 in conference, so you feel like you probably have to win 5. You have to get to 8-10 probably to make it. They've made the tournament with an 8-10 conference record before, which is why I say probably get to 8-10. You have both Bedlam games, have to win those. OSU is the worst team in the conference, at least on paper. Got to win both of those. Then you do play West Virginia at home. You beat them in Morgantown, so you hope for that. But then the rest of it, I mean, you go to Manhattan, which you haven't won at like a decade. Lon Kruger never won there. So it's been like unbelievably long since they've won in Manhattan. The other games are Tech at home, Fog, which you're not going to win, Texas at home, Ames, and then Lubbock. Boy, I don't know where the wins are. You know what I mean? So
Lon Kruger was a K-State sleeper agent, by the way.
He always lost to K-State in Manhattan. Even with better teams. Even the Buddy team couldn't win in there.
Final Four team.
Yeah. That and Hilton. It seemed like you could never get Hilton either.
Well, at least Hilton's like Iowa State's been a consistent program for the most part. Kansas State's had some years where they've been bad and still couldn't win in there. Crazy. But that's it. So we'll see. And then obviously a Big 12 tournament, which you always – that's always like your break glass case of emergency in college basketball. You always have that in the back of your mind, like maybe we just get hot for 1 week, but – there's no way you're going to go through this conference.
No,
you know what I mean?
The Big 12 tournament has become, you have to win day one. That's the thing. Whoever's playing on day one, you got to win day one. And the way that Oklahoma's been turning over the ball, with the exception of K-State, win or go home, game one tournament time, you should be able to ride with that defense. You should. Not if they're going to turn the ball over like this. And then even when you fix it, you lose the rebounding battle by 22. It's inexcusable, frankly.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll see if they can turn around. Bedlam on Saturday in Stillwater. Ryan and I are both going to be there. I've never been to Gallagher before, so I'm looking forward to that. My first time. Ryan's been there.
Yeah.
Once? How many times?
I've been to Gallagher a bunch. Once covering the game,
okay.
But I've been to Gallagher a bunch, yeah. Got family up in Stillwater, so.
Looking forward to it. Stillwater's usually pretty, I like Bedlam games in Stillwater. I've been to, Bedlam baseball, Bedlam football last year was a lot of fun. So looking forward to that for the first time. On Saturday, we will be there. We're actually going to we're on the stretch where we're just not missing games because we're in Stillwater, home for Texas Tech. Then we're going to Fog. Very excited for that. We're going to road trip up to Lawrence, and then Texas comes. So we're just catching all the games basically as we move into February and the Diamond Sports get closer. We will finish up real quick just to give you a chance, Ryan, if you had anything you just wanted to bring up. We had softball media day last Thursday. I got to hear Patty and Jocelyn Allo talk for a little bit. Softball season's coming up real soon. I mean, they play it's like a little over a week, right? It's like the 11th or 10th or something.
February 10th.
Soon.
February 10th, they kick off at UC Santa Barbara. On the 12th, as we are driving back from Lawrence, Oklahoma and UCLA will be playing, obviously, a Women's College World Series rematch, a top 5 matchup. We will be navigating flow softball on the road on my phone, trying to figure out how to make that happen. I've never been a flow softball guy, so we'll see how it goes. February 5th, our preseason, our season preview series on the site is going to roll out. So February 5th, start checking. I've been working on that for a few weeks here. So it should be a nice little, it's a 5-parter. It's a 5-part series counting you down to softball. It will have everything you need from top to bottom. And like I kind of dropped last time, we'll have a little inside track this year, which will be a ton of fun. I'm working with Nicole Mendez. We've named the show, guys. It's The Road to OKC. It'll be Wednesday nights on the franchise, 107.7 in OKC from 7 to 8. That'll start on February 23rd and then roll every Wednesday night from from February 23rd until the end of the College World Series. So should be a ton of fun to get to work with Nicole Mendez, who obviously hoisted that national championship trophy last year.
That's a short road for OU. It's like 20 minutes.
Yeah, if that.
30 minutes to OKC.
Also,
they play there too in March, right?
Yeah,
they'll host
the Hall of Fame Classic. Real quick, also, This is not a softball thing. OU women's tennis, Audra Cohen, no one talks about them. She is another phenomenal hire that Joe Castiglione made. She has revamped that tennis program. Just this last week, they went to Duke, number 6 Duke, first top 10 dual victory in the history of the program, and they're headed to the ITA Indoor National Championship. So shout out to them.
Nice.
I think I saw that highest ranking ever. Number 4 in the rankings or something like that, Ryan. They're highest ranking ever in the history of the program.
They were in the teens prior to beating Duke. Beat number 6 Duke, obviously, like I said, it's the highest win in the history, and just low key under the radar. Audra Cohen, she's been there a few years. Every single year they get better and better and better. Another really nice hire there in the athletic department.
They were just playing inspired after Rafa Nadal's Australian Open.
Yeah,
that's it.
Which I got up at 2:30 in the morning to watch, and then was up still at 8 a.m. watching because it was still going. My dad, I was down visiting my dad in Texas, and he got up and he said, "Are you still up watching this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I haven't been to bed. It just keeps going." It's a great match though, and Nadal got the win, so it's worth it. History, 21 majors. Anyway. We'll have baseball coming up here soon too as well. Peyton Graham is like on everything. He keeps continuing. He's preseason All-American, Baseball America, so that's pretty cool for him. Interesting to see what kind of season he has. I've heard some rumblings about him maybe moving to shortstop, which will be interesting because he was so good at third base last year. And obviously, Oklahoma's had Brandon Zaragoza at shortstop forever, and he's not there anymore. So that could be an interesting thing to watch. We'll have some baseball coverage that'll ramp up a little bit as we get a little closer to that. They start later than softball does. By about a week and a half or so. The plan is for me to be down in Arlington for the State Farm College Baseball Showdown. That should be fun, assuming that all goes well. I haven't heard back from MLB yet. It still says pending, so let's just hope.
Yeah,
but we'll be some coverage there. OU starts over with Auburn, some really big games to start the season. So Diamond Sports are coming up.
Callaway's going to be in Arlington. It's not too late to send me to Palm Springs, boss.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Arlington and Palm Springs, those are basically the same thing.
Pretty much, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe next year.
So Diamond Sports coming up, basketball, lots of good stuff. allsooners.com, the place to be for all that coverage. So that's it for us. Long show, but we had a lot to get to, and we'll continue to get to it all. allsooners.com, the place to be, of course, for all the coverage of obviously football continues to make additions. However, coaching staff, whatever, anything they got, we'll have it for you on allsooners.com, and of course, basketball and the Diamond Sports coming up soon as well. So thank you so much for listening. Be sure to catch next week's show, all the shows on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. If you have an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. It's also posted on our website, allsooners.com. Click on the play and listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. For Ryan Chapman and John Hoover, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys next time.